Beloved friends, today we gather with hearts that have known both joy and sorrow, both celebration and loss. When someone we cherish steps beyond the borders of this earthly life, a silence settles in the kind of silence that speaks louder than words, that presses upon the soul, urging us to listen more deeply, for in that stillness many have discovered that the story does not end at the grave. The journey of the spirit continues, and at times heaven draws near enough for us to sense its gentle touch. The idea that the veil between the physical and spiritual realms is thinner than we imagine invites us to consider that existence is far more layered and interconnected than what our natural eyes can perceive. Throughout history and across cultures, human beings have experienced moments that reveal a nearness of the unseen world, an unexpected warmth, a sudden clarity, an intuition that feels too real to dismiss. These experiences often emerge during times of grief or reflection, when the heart is tender and the soul more receptive. In such moments, the boundary between what we know and what we sense becomes softer, allowing impressions from the spiritual realm to slip gently into our awareness. This thinness of the veil often expresses itself in subtle ways rather than dramatic ones. It may come as a fleeting thought that seems to originate from beyond our own mind, or a memory that surfaces with unusual vividness, as though it were being stirred by an unseen hand. Some describe feeling a presence light, peaceful, and familiar, resting around them in a way that brings comfort rather than fear. Others notice signs in their environment that resonate deeply with the essence of a departed loved one, moments that carry a sense of intentionality rather than coincidence. Such experiences may not be loud or forceful. Instead, they arrive with a quiet authority that speaks directly to the heart. The thin veil also reflects the idea that the spiritual realm is not distant or removed, but intertwined with our daily lives. It suggests that those who have passed on exist in a dimension that is closer than the mind can comprehend, interacting with us in ways that transcend physical limitations. This nearness does not imply constant communication, nor does it encourage seeking out forces beyond our understanding. Rather, it acknowledges that love and spirit endure, that connection is not severed simply because a physical form has been laid to rest. The heart, when uncluttered by fear or doubt, becomes a vessel capable of receiving impressions that originate from a place of peace and continuity. Understanding the thinness of the veil encourages us to approach life with greater sensitivity to the spiritual currents that flow around us. It invites us to quiet the noise within, to listen more deeply, and to recognize that the world is not divided into separate realms, but layered with dimensions that occasionally touch, revealing glimpses of a reality that extends far beyond what we can measure or explain. Comfort often arrives in subtle, unexpected ways from those who have passed on, reminding us that love does not dissolve with physical separation. When a loved one departs from this world, their absence can feel overwhelming, creating a void that words cannot fill. Yet, in the quiet spaces of grief, many people encounter moments that bring a strange, gentle reassurance. These moments are often understated, delicate, and easily overlooked if the heart is burdened with too much pain or distraction. They may not come as dramatic visions or extraordinary signs, but as soft touches of peace woven into ordinary life, as if the essence of the departed finds a pathway into the familiar moments we least expect. These expressions of comfort may arrive through the natural world. A scent we strongly associate with them may brush past us, even when nothing around us explains it. A favorite song might begin playing at a moment when our heart is longing for connection. A sudden breeze may feel as though it carries a whisper of presence, or a gentle warmth may settle on the body just as we think of them. These are not always meant to be interpreted literally, nor are they guaranteed indicators of direct spiritual contact. Instead, they serve as reminders that comfort can transcend physical form and appear in ways that resonate with the memory of the one who has passed on. They touch the soul in a way that logic cannot fully capture, awakening a sense of continuity that brings peace. For others, comfort comes in the form of internal impressions, a sudden thought of guidance, a feeling of being supported, or a quieting of fear may arise at a time when strength is needed most. These impressions often feel like a merging of memory, intuition, and spiritual closeness. They do not impose themselves or demand attention. They simply arrive, light and unmistakably kind. It is as though the bond shared with the deceased continues to echo in the deeper layers of the heart, making itself known when solitude becomes too heavy or when hope begins to waver. These inner moments foster a sense of companionship that defies physical absence. Comfort can also emerge through meaningful coincidences, encounters, timing, objects discovered at the right moment, that seem orchestrated to lift the spirit. These instances may appear small to an outsider, but to the grieving heart they feel intentional, purposeful, and intimately personal. They speak a language understood only by the one who receives them, delivering reassurance that love still moves gently toward them. When the heart remains open, these unexpected touches of comfort become reminders that the connections formed in life carry a spiritual weight that does not simply fade with loss. The heart must remain open and discerning to recognize spiritual communication, for the subtle nature of these moments often requires more sensitivity than force. When a loved one has passed on, many people yearn for signs or messages, yet the desire alone is not enough to perceive them. These experiences rarely burst forth in dramatic displays. Instead, they whisper, they nudge, they flow gently into awareness. To recognize them, the inner posture of the heart matters deeply. An open heart is not one that is naive or unguarded, but one that is willing to listen without fear and without rushing to conclusions. It allows the mind and spirit to move beyond the noise of daily concerns and rest in a place where quiet impressions can be felt. Discernment plays an equally important role. Not every thought, sensation, or coincidence is a message, and wisdom calls for careful evaluation. True spiritual impressions carry a unique quality of peace and clarity. They do not incite anxiety or confusion. They do not contradict the character or essence of the person who has passed. Instead, they arrive with a gentle weight, a calm assurance, or a warmth that aligns with what is familiar and true. Discernment helps the heart distinguish between emotional longing, imagination, and authentic spiritual nearness. It encourages one to observe the feeling behind the moment rather than only the moment itself, noticing whether it brings comfort, alignment, and a sense of rightness. An open heart is cultivated through stillness, reflection, and a willingness to acknowledge the unseen. In times of grief, the emotional landscape can become clouded with sorrow, making it difficult to perceive anything beyond the pain. But when the heart slowly softens and trust begins to return, sensitivity increases. Silence becomes a companion rather than a burden, and within that silence, the possibility of subtle spiritual connection expands. This openness is not something forced. It grows naturally as healing unfolds, and as one becomes willing to encounter the presence of hope in gentle forms. Discerning awareness also means being patient. Spiritual communication, if it occurs, is not bound to our schedule or expectations. It may come unexpectedly, in a moment of stillness, or in the midst of ordinary routines. The attentive heart learns to notice patterns, impressions, and quiet stirrings without clinging to them or dismissing them outright. It observes with a balanced spirit, receptive yet grounded, hopeful yet thoughtful. Through this blend of openness and discernment, one becomes better able to recognize when a deceased loved one may be reaching across the thin boundary of realms with a message that is felt more than heard, sensed more than seen, understood more than explained. Moments of loss can become pathways to deeper spiritual awareness because grief reshapes the way the heart perceives the world. When someone we love departs from this life, the familiar rhythms of our days are disrupted, and the heart is thrust into a space where ordinary routines no longer carry the same meaning. In this vulnerable state, the inner world becomes more sensitive, more reflective, and more aware of what lies beyond the visible. The intensity of sorrow breaks open the boundaries of what we think we understand, allowing spiritual truths to surface in ways they may not have when life felt predictable and whole. Loss often forces the soul to confront questions it once avoided, questions about purpose, presence, and the continuity of the spirit. These questions create openings within the heart, spaces where deeper awareness can take root. In the quiet moments of grief, when distractions fade and the weight of absence presses inward, the spirit becomes more attuned to the subtle movements of the unseen. This heightened sensitivity is not born of superstition, but of longing, reflection, and the search for meaning in the midst of pain. It is in these moments that many begin to notice gentle impressions or comforting awareness that seems to transcend ordinary experience. The process of mourning naturally shifts one's attention inward. Instead of outward busyness, the heart turns toward memory, seeking connection with the one who has passed. Through this inward gaze, people often discover a realm of intuition, feeling, and spiritual resonance that they may have overlooked before. The boundaries between memory and spiritual perception become softer, allowing the possibility of sensing presence or receiving subtle reassurance. Not every experience in grief is spiritual in nature, but the openness created by loss can make it easier to perceive what might otherwise remain unnoticed. Pain also has a way of stripping away superficial concerns. It clarifies what matters and brings the deeper layers of existence into focus. In that clarity, many find themselves more aware of the continuity of love, the resilience of the spirit, and the profound truth that life extends beyond physical form. The search for comfort becomes intertwined with the search for understanding, and in that search, the heart becomes more receptive to impressions that feel sacred, gentle, and reassuring. Thus, moments of loss often transform into moments of spiritual awakening. The sorrow that once seemed impenetrable becomes a doorway through which the soul begins to perceive the unseen with new depth. The absence of a loved one awakens a heightened awareness of presence, inviting the grieving heart to explore dimensions of reality that become more visible when the familiar world has been shaken, and the spirit longs for connection, meaning, and peace.